Party's here.
Hello, what
How
up?
are you?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Since I was younger, I always wanted to eventually be an engineer. I just didn't know how I would go about doing it.
How's your team?
It's good. I'm really happy. I'm like working with some really talented and smart people, which is like what the dream was, right? Like that's why we got into this, right? I always imagined that engineers were just these math wizards who, I couldn't possibly be on the same like wavelength intellectually as.
The JustWorks apprenticeship program started in November. We were the first cohort of people to do it.
Did you ever think that this was going to be possible when you started to teach yourself how to code? Did you think that you could get to the point where you're like actually working on a team?
I mean, I hoped that I would. Like that was the goal, but sometimes the goal changes.
Sometimes dreams don't come true.
I went to Flatiron School for 15 weeks for software engineering, and then I applied to JustWorks and got hired as an apprentice. At the end of the apprenticeship, I interviewed for a full-time position, and I got hired as an associate software engineer.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Good morning.
So, before we begin, I have a question for all of you. What does a thesaurus eat for breakfast? Synonym rolls.
Earlier in my career, there was a point where I didn't feel like I particularly enjoyed going to work. But I always thought like I thought weird, if that makes sense. Like I always thought that I was like an abstract kind of thinker and like, yeah, like what job, like lets you what job is that considered like a good thing, and I could never really figure it out. My wife had mentioned, have you ever looked into software engineering? You love technology, you love computers. It's a creative field, and I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And it turns out that the engineering apprenticeship was the opportunity. This is by far, like in terms of like career stuff, the happiest and like most motivated I've ever been, Like
Before I became an engineer, I worked in retail. I would always get slightly depressed on my birthday because I felt like I wasn't reaching my potential and I wasn't going toward what I wanted to do. I still go back to the stores that I've worked at, but I would prefer to be a shopper rather than actively working in the store. You aren't rewarded for ingenuity in retail as much as here at JustWorks. Whether you're new or not new, you have an impact on your team and on the company.
I feel like here different point of views are appreciated, even as newbies. There's like things that we can add to a situation.
I feel like now if I want to do something, I can do it. Like whereas before I didn't always know that that was possible.
I wake up every morning happy with the work that I do. It's something new every day, which is really what I was looking for. Turns out that I just wanted to get to use some of my natural like curiosity towards things.
So right now we're going to get coffee because I need coffee before we start work for the day.
I'm now like on a course that I feel like is awesome for me and my family,